that way. Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't realise that you were that jumpy.
It's the Forbidden Forest, Kaia. I'm entitled to be jumpy.
Well, this is definitely one of our most immersive sets here at the studio tour. And it is worth saying, if you are afraid of spiders or other creatures that go bump in the night, it might be worth following the butterflies.
Creating the Forbidden Forest was no easy feat, and I don't even want to tell you what is around that corner.
Today, we are going to be going deep into the forest to tell you everything you've ever wanted to know about the Forbidden Forest set.
Welcome to our brand new series brought to you by Warner Brothers Studio Tour London, The Making of Harry Potter.
Today, we are super excited to be sharing with you all some behind-the-scenes secrets in just how we brought the Forbidden Forest to life. My name is Kaia.
And my name is Wayne.
Welcome to the Gryffindor Common Room.
The whole thing, Hogsmeade, Hogwarts and the Forbidden Forest, is kind of a microcosm of the world in a way, isn't it? There's the safety of Hogwarts and the dormitory, the common room, Gryffindor common room, which featured heavily. There's security, comfort in all of that. And the wild outside is in fact the forest, the Forbidden Forest, the sometimes threatening great unknown.
Harry Potter production designer Stuart Craig there talking to us when we first introduced the Forbidden Forest set to the studio tour. Now, we are of course in the safety and the comfort of the Gryffindor common room that he did mention earlier. And I know I'm definitely happier in here than I am in the Forbidden Forest.
For sure, absolutely. I think it's really interesting what he was saying about how intentional it was to create a real divide between the safety of inside the castle, and obviously we know that this set is created with warm colours and a fire roaring behind us to create a real feeling of safety, then contrasted with the darkness and the coldness of the forest. It's definitely unnerving in there.
Well, I don't know about you, but actually when you mention the warmness of in here, it certainly, even sitting in these lovely lived-in seats, it definitely feels a lot more homely. And stepping into the Forbidden Forest, it just feels colder as a place.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So the Forbidden Forest set first appears in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone when we see Harry, Ron, Hermione and Draco sent with Hagrid on detention.
Oh, rather them than me, that's all I can say.
I mean, the Forbidden Forest, for me, is home to some really iconic scenes. Do you have any favourites set in the forest?
Ooh.
It's a tricky question there.
That is a pretty good question. I do have to say, I always remember, and maybe this is part of the reason why I'm genuinely so afraid of the forest, but I always go back to the original movie and that scene where we see the hooded figure, which I won't spoil for anybody who it is, but we see them over the unicorn sort of drinking their blood. That's quite that really did sit with me in a quite a scary way as a child.
The body of the dead unicorn, that scene was in a built forest here. In the beginning, it was part of that realization that we couldn't build everything. The forest itself became something to be searched for, looked for, and so on. And we did, in fact, shoot in a pine forest in Black Park.
Real forests are great for vistas. If there's a running sequence, you can get those shots in one. They're not very friendly for actors. You know, they get cold very quickly. You've got the environment, you know, you've got rain. You can't predict the wind. And it's really hard to control the elements. So we would opt to go and build on the stage for all the tight shots and anything we would really want to do. You know, if there was acting, you know, and there was dialogue, we'd want to be doing it on the stage. The problem we've got is scale. And so there's forests that we can't find that Stuart wants. So we would have to go and build our own.
The roots actually over the period of the films got bigger and bigger, and more above ground and exposed. Aragog's lair was exactly that, was down and in among all these exposed roots. So what we've ended up with in the Warner Brothers studio tour is more roots than ever before, bigger and larger, and more space underneath. So it's bigger and more threatening and more fun, hopefully.
Let's start talking about trees. These are no ordinary trees.
That's right. These trees are massive. If you've ever visited us here at the studio tour, you'll see that it's not just the trees, but the intricate root systems that make up the Forbidden Forest. And of course, Aragog's infamous lair?
Well, trees are quite difficult to create because we all know what a tree looks like. And so if something isn't quite right, we're all going to know. So we're going to pass over to Paul Hayes, who can tell us a little bit more about creating the towering trees in the Forbidden Forest.
You know, when you start looking at a proper tree, like an oak tree or a big cedar, and you look at the bark shapes, it's really hard to produce a tree that looks natural. So what we do is we go out, we'll look at trees, and if we can, we'll squeeze the bark. And when I mean squeeze, we'll take some silicone with us, and we'll mix it together. And what we're trying to do, we'll apply it to the tree. And so basically we're copying it. And then we'll take that back to the studio, and then we'll cast sheets out of it. So we either use plaster or we sometimes use foam, depending on the scale of the trees.
You know, it seems silly to say, but it really does blow my mind how they can craft something as, you know, simple as a tree, and we take for granted how much work goes into it.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful level of commitment to the work.
Absolutely. And so from that, the trees start to take shape, but then the work doesn't end there. So this is when our painting department comes in. Paul Westcott was the head painter on the Harry Potter series, and he was responsible for making sure that the trees looked as realistic as possible on set.
Our process is always layers. The more layers you've got, the more realistic it looks. After that, we are into doing a floss, and we've got two colours for flossing. One we do all over to bring out the relief, the texture. Once we've done that, then we go in with a lighter version, which is like a silvering colour, which you see on most trees. And then we will do the final finish in the stage to tie them all in. And that's where we're going to do the sawdust and the green side of it.
Fantastic. Now, I believe the green side of things he was talking about there is the moss that we see on the trees, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about mossing. So to make this mossy effect, what they would do is they would get sawdust, and then they would throw that into a cement mixer with green paint and water, and they would churn that all around to give this like quite earthy, mossy effect, which they would then paint on the trees themselves. Or I say paint, they would probably more fire it onto the trees, literally throw it into place, use a hose maybe, throw it in that way.
That's something that I do know. So moss needs damp conditions, dark conditions, cold conditions, and in the real world, in nature, the moss tends to only grow on the north side of a tree due to it being those conditions and reaching less sunlight. And they've replicated that on the trees for the films and here at the studio tour as well, which is incredible attention to detail. The Forbidden Forest is not just home to trees, moss and mushrooms, but a variety of creatures as well, some scarier than others. So do you have a particular favourite or least favourite creature that we see in the Forbidden Forest?
Well, if we move away from spooky territory, first of all, I would probably say, I mean, it would be very difficult to not say that Buckbeak is a favourite. I know we've got other creatures as well, but Buckbeak is just the one that, you know, Harry is so happy when he gets the chance to fly on Buckbeak.
Everyone's favourite hippogriff. And we actually have two versions of Buckbeak here at the studio tour. We have a standing version and a sitting version. And the reason for this was so that our filmmakers were able to program specific movements to each version of Buckbeak. Now, by having two models, it meant that each version had hyper-realistic movements programmed in, rather than using one model, which would have had to sit, stand, fly, squawk, poo. We see Buckbeak poo on screen. And all of these movements are much more hyper-realistic, having two separate versions.
But what about you? Have you got anyone better than Buckbeak?
Oh, I don't know if you can get much better than Buckbeak, but I do love the scene where we get to meet Grawp, Hagrid's half-brother.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I think he's a fantastic character and does not get enough screen time, in my opinion.
Now, there's one thing that I've been trying to avoid so far, but very difficult to go into the Forbidden Forest without experiencing spiders.
It is.
I am not a massive fan of spiders. I'm actually quite scared of them.
I didn't know this about you.
Of Acromantula.
Oh my goodness. Well, being as you've mentioned spiders, of course, the Forbidden Forest wouldn't be complete without Aragog, whether you like him or not. And Nick Dudman was the creatures supervisor on all of the Harry Potter films, and he's here to talk to us a little bit more about how those Acromantulas came to life.
We built Aragog because in a meeting, they were going, "Oh, the spiders, they'll all have to be digital." And I said, well, Aragog just walks out of a cave and delivers dialogue. We could build that. You know, I could almost hear my crew behind me going, "What are you saying?" But, you know, that was a wonderful thing to actually construct. You know, it's a prototype. Everything we do is a prototype. So when somebody comes up and says, "Oh, how are you going to build the spider?" You know, the truthful answer is we haven't a clue. We're just trying methods we've used before and ideas we've had. I hire a lot of very clever people, so the chances are it will. You tend to start off making a maquette, a small model, to discuss, and absolutely nobody has a clue of what that is going to be like when it's scaled up. And you have to sort of, as quickly as possible, get to a full-size sculpt of something, if only to go, "Guys, come and look at this." You're looking at something it's got the floor plan of the Eiffel Tower.
I mean, I don't know about you, I think that is perfect testament to the work that the team on the Harry Potter films did, not even knowing if what they were promising was 100% possible, but doing it anyway.
But again, it comes back to that commitment to doing it and to bringing it to life. It didn't matter if it was possible. They were going to find a way to make it possible.
So much passion behind bringing these creatures, sets to life.
Exactly. I mean, it's just like we talked about before with the commitment that they put into the films. They had to adapt to these concepts as they went along. And the filmmakers needed to be able to ensure that they could be practical for use on set.
With Aragog, when we first rigged it up on the set and activated it and sort of did the first walkthrough, which I videoed, people did sort of go, "Ugh." Yeah. And then I got Dan Radcliffe and Rupert Grint down and just asked them to stand at a certain place and videoed and just let the thing come out. And they didn't know where it was going to stop. And it was wonderful because they started backing off, you know, and you could see them just going, "God," you know, and you just think, yeah, that's working.
I know, I do feel very sorry that it did have such an impact on them, but it did on me as well the first time I seen it at the tour.
Absolutely, but it is incredible to see all of the work and detail that goes into all of the props, sets, costumes, animatronics, creatures here at the studio tour.
Book your tickets in advance if you would like to experience breathtaking sets like the Forbidden Forest for yourself here at Warner Brothers Studio Tour London, the making of Harry Potter. Goodbye.
See you later.